Pod.
Rugby Pod. Hello, and welcome back to the Rugby Pod, where we've got a little midweek, I'm going to call it a special episode, and we're going to react to the first Test squad. And it's not just me and producer Rob. We're all over the world. We've got friend of the show, all-round legend, the great Bernard Jackman. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good lads. Good to be on.
Very good. Well, me and Bernard will be giving our thoughts on Andy Farrell's first ever Lions Test team. And wow, there are some spanners in the works, according to producer Rob. I called most of them, but the fans ain't feeling it at all. So anyway, just settle back, enjoy. Make sure you subscribe on Spotify and all that. But you're going to interact with this. You're going to be happy. You're going to be sad. Here we go. This episode is presented by Sky Sports on Now.
So, the British and Irish Lions are on tour, James.
They certainly are, Andrew. And if the millions of Rugby Pod listeners want to watch the action, then Sky Sports is the only place to do it. All 3 Test matches and every single minute of the 6 warm-up games, live from the 20th of June to the 2nd of August.
And by streaming Sky Sports with Now, they can add or remove memberships whenever they like.
Oh, lovely stuff.
18 plus, UK only. Minimum speed 2.5 megabytes per second. Live scheduling may be subject to change and full terms apply.
The great Bernard Jackman, how are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Thanks. In Portugal on holidays, so quiet night last night. So happy to be up early.
Have you got FOMO like me, or not?
Yeah, I do now. These teams are being tested. Yeah, are being selected on Monday and Tuesday with the additions and just the poor friendlies, the lack of competition. I wasn't, but now we're test week and teams are announced. Yeah, I want to be there.
I am now. You said it. You're speaking for me as well. I wish I was there. We're not. We are recording remotely. We're passing judgment. Let's get straight into it. Bernard, we're going to break down the 2 teams. Let's just give a very kind of overarching view on what you're excited to see, where the game's going to be won, just some kind of headline stuff. I just throw a couple of things out there. I am quite underwhelmed by the Australia team, I'll be honest, which is a little bit harsh to say. But let's start with some excitement. What are you most excited to see at the weekend? It's been a hell of a build-up.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Australia pitch up and fire up. I mean, it's been a long wait for them. Obviously, horrific World Cup, but they have 2 unbelievably exciting opportunities on the horizon for a post-World Cup, a Lions tour and a home World Cup. And I mean, there's still a lot of talent in Australian rugby. There's still a lot of history, legacy, and it's up to this team over the next 3 weeks to represent that well. And the ramifications for not performing are massive, and a lot of the Australian greats have spoken about that. But the other side of it is, if they go out and perform, they can effectively save Australian rugby. And I mean, what an opportunity that is. And whether it's the older guys like Slipper, who's obviously, only the second Australian to play the Lions twice, to new kids like Tom Lynagh, it's a heavy burden to carry. But if they deal with it, they look back for the rest of their lives and say, we took that opportunity. So and we haven't seen a huge amount of this team, because obviously the franchises have been a little bit underpowered, but now they're coming together, and they're still an exciting team. I agree with you. No Tupu, no Valentini, no Skelton. It does weaken them a bit, but still, this is still an opportunity for them. And I genuinely believe in Schmidt. I really do, and I think he'll have them primed to put in a big performance.
Yeah, just for the listeners, and I'm sure loads of our listeners have heard you speak before, and we've had private conversations. You've shared a lot of the stuff on the podcast as well around Andy Farrell. And I know you know him. I know you speak to him. You speak to people that are very close to him as well. When he's selecting this test team for the first game, how's he picking it? Is he picking it on form from the tour? Is he picking it from players that he loves and trusts, Tyburn, for example? Give us a kind of an idea of how he's done this.
Yeah, I think it's a mix, Jim. I think he's somebody that backs people, you know. So if you've if you've shown him something in the past, you've got massive credit in the bank. And I think Ty Burn is that selection, and he knows that he would say Ty Burns a test match animal, and he will have massive moments on Saturday, and that would prove and justify his selection. Then there's other ones like, Ellis Genge, and that's like I think probably a year ago he would have said Andrew Porter was the starting loosehead, but Genge has probably had much better form on this Lions tour, and I think he's a form selection, and it's a mix. I think Aki's somebody that he trusts, but he feels the combination of Tuipulotu and Hugh Jones is really important, and obviously Russell. So you've got a 10, 12, 13 who know each other inside out. So I think it's a mix of all those, Jim, and it's a fascinating selection because I think it's obviously the pressures now is on Farrell to deliver. He's kind of being quite stubborn, I would say, and staunch in being able to pick the coaching staff, the players he wants, and obviously the additions and all that stuff, and probably put himself in the firing line for criticism if they don't perform. So yeah, I think the next 48 hours for him will be tense. But look, he's been in this environment all his life since he's 16, so it's not new to him, and I think he'll revel in that, and he'll want his players to show a similar type of character to what he is as a man.
I think he's played it quite safe. Played it quite safe, one, by not picking his son on the bench. I thought he should have and could have. So with Tom Curry, I thought he was going to go with Tom Curry. I wouldn't have gone with Tom Curry, but I thought Andy Farrell would have gone the safer option with Tom Curry because he knows what he's getting. Whereas everyone else is like, he should have gone for Jack Morgan. So let's start on that because that's probably the headline out of all of this. From your point of view, Bernard, is that the headline out of all this, that Jack Morgan isn't starting and Tom Curry is?
I think Morgan would feel hard done by on form. I think it's been brilliant to see Morgan play on the front foot. I think we've all admired him playing for Wales, shown that fight and that heart, and just being relentless and being underpowered around him in the Six Nations. And I think he's a very good leader. I think he's someone that you'd want in your team. And I think with better players around him and being a dominant, he's looked $1 million. And I think Curry's one of those selections, I think it's a little bit like Ty Burn, where Farrell, I think, has seen what he can do, and he's a top-end player and has liked him. And I think the other sevens, I think Van der Fleer's had probably bigger moments. I think Morgan's had bigger moments. And I think Pollock could have started at 7 as well. I definitely think, I'm shocked he's not on the bench. I think the way they were talking him up as a line-out option, as a 6, we know he has game-changing moments, and he's done that throughout. I was full sure he was going to be on the bench, and I thought that Owen would have been on the bench as well, to be honest. Particularly when he came on and just looked so sharp last week. Because Marcus, I think, has had, he's had moments, but I think you wouldn't say he's been on fire really. So yeah, it does look a little bit safer. It does look a bit safer than I thought it was going to be a week ago. And I thought bringing Owen, you add Owen if you're going to use him in a test series, and I think if that happens to Russell early, I think maybe they could regret that. But maybe they have enough in the tank to win regardless. But it's a safer squad than I thought. I genuinely thought he's been geared up to have Pollock in this match day 23 from early days, from the Northampton game where they beat Leinster. And he went up against an Irish back row and was just outstanding. So that is a bit of a surprise, Jim.
Yeah, the Jack Morgan thing for me, just to finish off this conversation, because this is the one that people are going to be talking about. This is the one that's going across the news. Tom Curry starts like it's a crazy decision. I'll just go back to it. I kind of knew that Andy Farrell would pick him because with Tom Curry, and you said it there, and all the experts and people who understand rugby, at the very highest level, you see Tom Curry deliver. He's a phenomenal player. He's been a bit quiet on tour, like he hasn't been at his very best. The same as Ty Burn, like you said. But they know when it comes to test matches what he can do. And you think about the referee with Ben O'Keefe, how he's going to manage the breakdown. Tom Curry just isn't a poacher as well. Like, he's a counter-rucker. So he's picked a proven performer. So I know people are going to be hating on the Jack Morgan thing,
Yeah, Jim, I think to be honest, the squad, it's quite lopsided in terms of 8s and 7s and not 6s. In terms of, I don't know if he going on this tour, did he think he was going to be playing Tyburn at 6. Did he think he could have got away with a back row with Morgan or Pollock at 6 or Earl at 6? And I think now, because the line-out was quite. Wasn't functioning that well early on. It seems they've kind of went, oh shit, we need a hybrid playing 6, and now it's Chesney or Byrne. And it's very unfortunate for the likes of Jack Morgan, Pollock, and Josh van der Fleer. That is probably the area with Curry obviously starting. It's the area that the Lions have the most depth by a mile. I think you can play. They could change 7. Jack Morgan played the second test, and Van der Fleer could play the third test, and there'd be no real dip in performance, I think. But Curry is a quality player, and I think Farrell knows what he'll bring and likes what he'll bring, and he'll give him that muscle and physicality. I know the others do as well, but it's just, for me, it's by far the area that the Lions have the most depth in 8 and 7, and there's going to be casualties there because of that.
Do you think this is a bit of a reflection of the fact that the Wallabies are a bit of like an unknown quantity as well? Like, we don't really know how good they're going to be. So is he playing it safe, and then at least he knows what we're giving?
Yeah, I think so. I think Rob. I think he's very conscious of the first game is Schmidt's best chance of an ambush. So having players, like Curry, like Byrne, like Conan, who he's got absolutely zero doubts about, you know what I mean? In that back row, probably gives him a chance to feel that they'll problem solve on the field and make good decisions. And then once they see how the Wallabies are going to play, then obviously he can change it around a little bit and maybe focus a little bit more on themselves. But yeah, it's just fascinating to see what Schmidt sees in the Lions, because he's had a lot of opportunities to have a look at them, and they haven't really been tested. I've spoken to some coaches who've played against them in this tour, and they felt they saw things but just didn't have the firepower to actually execute it. And with better athletes and more time, potentially Schmidt will be able to do that. I think the Lions have looked really comfortable after 3 phases defensively. Like, they've been just eating up teams. And that AU-NZ team was a great example. That I know they were lost in terms of what they were trying to do, but just you felt the Lions looked like they would never be broken after 2 or 3 phases. But certainly there's no coach in the world who is as good as Joe Schmidt at actually finding weaknesses in that set piece defense, whether that's first phase, second phase, third phase. After that, I think it'll be hard for him. But and I think Simon Easterby, the Lions defense coach, would be worried that maybe they haven't been tested as much as they would like, and test 1 is still an area, even though they've had lots of games, where they may not just be all on the same page.
Listening to some of the Australian commentators, and we were chatting about the great Michael Hooper, how good he is in the media and how much of a powerful voice he has in the game now. And I'm going based on his comments around like Tom Liner playing at 10, for example, and his inexperience and the fact that they've gone with Jake Gordon at scrum half, and that would be this is before the squad was announced, that their 23 was announced, that if they were to go with Tom Liner and they were to go with Gordon, that they would go heavy in the kicking game. So you've seen the Lions, if there's anywhere that Australia can target, because that's what we're looking at now, like where can Australia target the Lions, where have we looked vulnerable? Would you think it's fair to say we've looked a little bit vulnerable in the air in the way that the Australian team are made up? And I suppose that Tom Liner has only got 5 caps. I think, is this his first start for the Wallabies?
He might have 1 start, but he's been mainly used off the bench. Yeah, he's 5 caps. I think, look, the Joe Schmidt game plan at international level, he's always relied on a 9 who's a very good box kicker. Conor Murray was in his peak under Joe Schmidt, and he believes Joe Schmidt, when he was with Leinster, was a completely different philosophy, because he felt at club level you could play a lot more than you can at test level, and he's very data driven. He's unbelievably organised. So I would say for Tom Liner, once Tom Liner has the skill set to probably play 10 for a Joe Schmidt coach team, isn't as hard as maybe to play 10 for an Andy Farrell coach team, if that makes sense. Because a lot as much doesn't go through the 10 for Joe Schmidt as it does for Andy Farrell. So Finn Russell has an unbelievable opportunity to pull the strings because so much is set up around a running 10, whereas for Joe, the 10 will have a role, but it's kind of like an NFL quarterback where you have a playbook, and that's been drilled. You don't need to really make as much decisions on the run playing for Joe Schmidt as you do for Andy Farrell. So I think once Line has the ability to deal with the pressure, I think he's literally going to be implementing the plan. Whereas I think Russell has a framework because that's how Andy Farrell coaches, and then he has to make the right decisions on the run, Jim. And that Gordon kicking game will take a lot of pressure off Line, and also it'll make the game tighter and more of a contest, and it'll come down to scraps, And that's what, like, the first chance that Farrell will have had property to see how the Lions deal with those scraps is Saturday from the Argentinian game in Dublin, and he was furious. He was furious about how poorly they dealt with that, and that's what Joe Schmidt will hope, is that they can just win some of those scraps in the air, some of those contests in the air, and get the Lions on the back foot, and which they haven't been since Dublin.
Do you know where I've got a feeling where we smashed them? And this is a really old-fashioned statement I'm about to make.
The Maul. No?
Yeah,
Scrum?
and both, Scrum and Maul. And this, I say it's an old-fashioned saying because in years gone by, you would say Australia have got a weak pack, they're not great up front, and I'm not contradicting myself. I think they're much better up front physically around collisions, around breakdown. And the front row that Andy Farrell's picked, I just looked comfortable. I feel like I'm going back on what I've been saying over the last few weeks, but I'm looking at the two teams. I'm looking at the strength of the Lions pack. And I actually said that I thought Finlay Bealham might start because he's fit. I didn't know how fit Ty Furlong was. Dan Sheehan's a given, right? World class. You happy with the front row?
Yeah, I'm happy with the front row. I think Furlong has shown the benefit of game time. He hasn't been like, the Ty Furlong of old. But he's always been somebody, and he hasn't had this for the last 2 years, where the more he plays, the better he gets. And just those consecutive minutes over the last 4 weeks, or 3 weeks, and plus the prep for Argentina has had him shown a little bit more. And I think this front row will do a job. I think this will do a job. I think Genge will be really destructive and go after Slipper. And I think it's an area. I just think obviously no Skelton. I think Joe McCarthy was probably being pushed forward to be able to kind of give him that muscle to deal with Skelton. I think that's going to affect the Wallabies Maul D. I know in La Rochelle he's ridiculously destructive at Maul time. And then I also think that Joe's missed a trick with Daniela Tupu. I don't know if you see the interviews with him. He just says he doesn't really know where he stands. And, someone like him, he's obviously signed for Racing 92. And even though his form may have dipped over the last couple of years, I just think that they may regret not getting him in the right place where he feels that love, where he feels important. And even if it's off the bench, like he is someone who the last 20 minutes could, at his best, put fear into that Lions team, and not to have him. And unfortunately, obviously, they lost Valentini to injury, and he's played 47 of the last 50 tests. Like, he has been a player of the year for Australia. Like, he's a massive loss when you don't have a Skelton or a Tupu in your matchday 23, I think, as well.
Yeah, I thought Tupou looks fit. He's as fit as he's ever been, and he's clearly been given a rocket, right? The fact that he's been told that you surplus to requirement unless you sort yourself out from a fitness point of view. And Petrus du Plessis, a good mate of mine, worked really hard with him and said he's an absolute freak athlete, which, as we know, the Australians don't have many of them freak athletes like the All Blacks or like South Africa do. And the ones that are freaks are injured. You mentioned Valentini there. Skelton's a huge loss for them as well. So, yeah, it's...
Just Jim, on the Australian selection, there's 6. Nick Champion, the Crespini, I think I say it. He's actually a bit underrated. He spent 3 years in the top 14 with Cast. He's not that flash, but he's an old school 6 who goes around the place, winning collisions. And he will do a lot of the donkey work to allow Fraser McRight have an impact over the ball. And that's you spoke about, the Wallabies will bring that aerial game, and they have athletes who are good under the high ball. But the reality is, one of the Wallabies' best features in November was their breakdown work. And Fraser McRight was top end. He destroyed Ireland at the breakdown in Dublin. And the Lions have shown some breakdown frailties, and they've said it's because players are learning the Andy Farrell way, etc. But you know what it's like in a test match. 2 or 3 big turnovers, can have massive momentum swings. So that's going to be fascinating. But he's someone who wouldn't be in the well-known champion because Pina, I can't even say it, but he's a good operator in France. He has been a good operator in France. He came back to the force, and I wouldn't underestimate him, even though he mightn't be a rock star in terms of his profile.
Nick Champion de Crespigny. That's how Justin Harrison was saying it. So he was rolling off the tongue there. Hell of a name, but he can bang. That's for sure. And you know what? The referee's going to be interesting. You think about Ben O'Keefe. I don't know what the stat was in the game that it was the first game, wasn't it? Was it the Western Force game? I think it was for the Lions. No, hardly. There might have been a couple of penalties around the breakdown, but he did not want to reward Jackal. So. I mean, the coaches are going to know this as well. But the Battle of the Breakdown will be fascinating. And that's, again, with a Tom Curry, with how he is around the breakdown and counter-ruck into the cowsheds and back. I reckon you'll see why Tom Curry's been picked.
So I don't know if you know this, but when Joe Schmidt is an anorak about the laws, like he is the greatest geek, a rugby coach around the rugby laws. And he actually... like his reports back to referees are notorious in terms of how ruthless and harsh they were when he was coaching in Ireland, and that worked. I mean, I don't remember, but when Ireland were going well in the lead up to Japan in 2018, I think we had a couple of games where we had 3 or 4 penalties per match. Like we were absolutely like cleaning up in terms of discipline. But that turned at the World Cup, where all the things we were getting away with, other coaches highlighted and referees kind of caught up with it. And then Joe went to World Rugby and he actually became head of the referees. The referees reported into him and didn't really go that well. So it'll be interesting if he still has the same ability to influence the likes of Ben O'Keefe with footage and, pointing out what the Lions are doing or getting their head around what they're doing is illegal. Like I haven't seen that. He hasn't obviously had this real opportunity to do it over a sustained period. But I do know that there was certainly some tension with referees in the past. And you have to be very careful as a coach of how far you push them. And certainly Farrell is pretty good at building a good relationship with referees. And if Ben O'Keefe referees the breakdown like he did against the Force, that's an area that the Lions won't have to worry about as much because, as you said, he gave the cleaner a lot of leeway in terms of getting in there and dealing with the jackler.
Talk to me about Ellis Genge, because he seems to be someone whose stock seems to have rose the most over this tour.
I think character-wise, he's obviously just he's obviously a leader. He's obviously captained teams in the past. He's not a leader. He hasn't had a leadership role officially with the Lions, but I just think he's someone that the players look to and has that energy and has that fight and fire. And then he's backed it up with how he's been playing. He's always been abrasive. But yeah, I think the way the Lions want to play, and everyone talks about the Lions' wide game, that's going to become less relevant. It's going to be about running over people, and that's going to put the likes of Freeman and Lowe into space a bit later on. And he has way more bang than Porter. Porter's someone who has the ability to have a lot of carries. But that real dynamism, that real raw power and fight in contact and fight post contact hasn't really been as evident over the last year or two, whereas I think Genge gives you that. Obviously he's an aggressive scrummager, but I just think just character, like I think Farrell looked at that squad and maybe there was not as many kind of raw, real kind of people who you go to war with as maybe he would have liked. And I think Genge is that person. And actually, Aki's someone who's like that, but obviously he's gone for the Scottish Central Partnership, which I totally understand, and I'm actually delighted to see Tuipulotu get a chance. I think he's top end, but I just remember during the Six Nations, I don't know if you remember it, but Ireland was struggling against Wales. Aki was on the bench, and he just came on and was just an absolute monster. You know what I mean? Destroyed him. And again, I can talk, and Farrell isn't someone like Razzie who picks his best players on the bench. Like, he doesn't do that, but certainly having Aki there to come on, whatever he has to come on, you get a lot of comfort from that, wouldn't you?
That's a great point that you made on the way that the Lions will play, Bernard. 100%. This game is going to be route one. It's going to be direct. It's going to be aerial bombs. It's going to be the crumbs. It's going to be physicality. This wide pitch we've been seeing, all right, it's nice to try. It's winter down in Australia. Yeah. And you know, as an ex-coach, we know as players, we know Andy Farrell, you look at the makeup of the players and the team that he's picked, the bench with the Bundy Aki coming on, for example, and Ollie Chesham, who's a Route 1 cart horse as well. This ain't wide pitch. And I say it pitch, I like that, because Scotland play like that as well, and we can maybe talk about the 10, 12, 13, which will allow us to do that. But I'm telling you now, they're going to take a direct approach, because the wide, for whatever reason, hasn't really worked. They're going to earn the right to go there in maybe test 2 or test 3, or maybe later on in the game. I don't know, but they're going to want to put themselves physically on the Wallabies on Saturday. That's their number one focus, I would say.
Yeah, and Jim, if it's not, I'll be gutted. Like, I want to see these two teams just go at each other. You know what I mean? Go at each other. And I think that's where the Lions, that power that the Lions have, whether, like, Sheen has a lot of power as well. I mean, Furlong at his best is so dynamic as a ball carrier, as a ball player. And that can be just putting someone like Genge into a hole and getting him on the front foot, smash that ruck, and then you go play to it. But it has to be confrontational. And yeah, I know people think of the Andy Farrell style as being, you know, a little bit paint by numbers and open up opportunities. But by God, does he like people who can actually just carry and carry forward and go north. So I think the other stuff is off transition, it's off good ball. But no, I think they'll want to be really direct. And I can't wait to see the Sualihi, Tuipulotu, you know, aggro and a bit of beef again. And I'm really happy he's starting just to see that. You know what I mean?
I asked Sione, Bernard, when I had Sione on my show, I asked him about the conversation that he had with Joseph Sualihi in the Scotland-Australia game, which was a mega matchup in the lead up to it as well. And we know Joseph Sualihi burst onto the scene during the Autumn Nations series, that game against England. And Sione went after him in the game, and Joseph went after Sione in the game, and they had them cross words, and Joseph Sualihi went off injured. And I said to Sione, I was like, you know, what did you say? I kind of given a little bit of a banter and a bit of a jive about it. And he was like, well, it's between us. You know, and he took a really kind of direct, he's like, you know, what goes on the pitch stays on the pitch. But I think something was said. There's clearly beef there. And that's going to be a hell of a matchup, isn't it? Because we're talking about the aerial stuff. We're talking about how physical the Lions are. In Joseph Sualihi, they have, and it's a big shout, they got one of the best rugby union players in the world. And he ain't played rugby union that long, but we've seen enough from him. And if you read, or like you will do, or you'll look at the Australian media, not only are they pinning their hopes on Australia doing well on this tour, they're pinning all their hopes on Joseph Sualihi delivering. He's that important to the team, right? That matchup's going to be wicked.
100%, Jim. And I think for Australia to win a test series or to win a test match on Saturday, you're looking at their team, you know, look, I think Fraser McReight could be, you know, could become one of the great open sides in terms of that Fetcher part. But realistically, like, I think Ekatau is a really good player. But Joseph Sualihi is the one who they have to hope has just a rock star game and just does things that are superhuman, that he's capable of doing, and puts pressure on the lines. Like, how many of those lines, like Finn has it, Tuipulotu we think could have it. Like, you know, he could have a test series here where he's talked about in the top 4 or 5 players in the world. But yeah, I think Australia need to. They're the home team. They need to get him into the game, and he needs to deliver now, because he effectively was signed realistically for this and a World Cup, and they are, you have very little money, but they basically placed a bet. They placed a bet on this freak athlete, and now thankfully he's fit to play. And that's what you want. You want those players in your dressing room coming out. And I thought it was interesting. Like, I don't know if you saw it on Sky, O'Gara talking about Owen Farrell justifying his selection. He just said, if he obviously knows Will Skelton well. If Will Skelton's in the Australian dressing room, which he obviously isn't now, and he's thinking about that Lions dressing room, he doesn't want Owen Farrell there. You know what I mean? And likewise, Andy Farrell doesn't want Joseph Suaalii there, because he can actually potentially be the main actor in this game.
Goody made a big shout, and I could see where he's coming from, that he could see Joseph Suaalii, he getting red carded. He's a big banger, and he bangs high as well. Yeah. And for all them reasons you've just said, he's going to be feeling it. He knows he's the poster boy, right? And he's going to be going after. You imagine Sione coming on a short line, or one of the big forwards coming around the corner. He's going to want to put a big shot in, and I just hope that he doesn't. I want to see it. I want to see a full complement. I want to see him on the pitch. But Goody made a great shout, and you could potentially see it happening.
This episode is brought to you by Sky Sports on Now. The British and Irish Lions are down under for the tour, and I'm pretty excited to see how it's going to unfold, Jim.
Oh yeah, me too. I'll be glued to Sky Sports, as it's the only place to watch every thrilling moment. Andrew, who are you most looking forward to seeing?
Oh, it's got to be Finn Russell, my favourite fly half, my favourite player, now champion of England as well. Finn Russell's the man. What about you, Jim?
I'm interested to see if Henry Pollock, at the age of 20, could make the Test match side. That's it.
There we go. And what are your predictions?
Predictions 2-1. I reckon Lions first, Australia second in Melbourne in front of 100,000 people, and it's a straight shootout in the third.
However the Lions get on, it's going to be very hard to take your eyes off the action. So make sure you catch all 3 tests and all 6 warm-up games live from the 20th of June to the 2nd of August on Sky Sports.
And by streaming Sky Sports with Now, you can add and remove membership whenever you like.
Nice! Watch every match on Sky Sports, available to stream live with Now. 18 plus, UK only. Minimum speed 2.5 megabytes per second. Live scheduling may be subject to change, and full terms apply.
What have you made of the Finn Russell, Jameson Gibson Park link up so far?
I think it's been good. I think they haven't had a huge amount of time together, but I think, to be on, both are easy to play with, to be fair. I think they're both so natural. They both see things quicker than others, and then when you put them together, it's a devastating match. And the great thing about Gibson Park is he'll actually take some of the decision making away from Finn. So he'll always be scanning. He'll play both sides of the ruck, and I'd be pretty confident, because this is how he is for Leinster and Ireland, is that when Finn gets the ball, he'll be getting the ball at a time when his numbers up or his equal numbers, and he has an opportunity to go and then pull the strings. I do think, and I'll be speaking to some people, the Wallabies, part of their game plan is to try and target Finn, and that's literally because they know how important he is to the Lions. And I think we saw shooting from the outside, one of the scrum halves, and trying to get into his eye line. But I think, actually, to be honest, someone like Finn, they can actually revel in that. Like, he's not like a young 10, and if that doesn't work, and I think they might try and get after him a little bit, late tackles and a little bit of verbals and things like that. But again, I've never seen Finn Russell as mature. I've never seen him so confident, so comfortable. And also, he has the right people around him now, and he has hopefully a pack who are going to be on top. But more importantly, he has, Sione and Hugh Jones who know his body language, everything that he needs outside him, and obviously inside him. I think Gibson Park will do a lot of the box kicking as well, but also make sure he only gives him ball that he can do something with, and if not, he'll play the forwards, around the edge, try and get them over the gain line, or play back down the blind side until they they get a favourable situation. So that combination could be electric. I think it will be.
Yeah, and Jameson did say that he sees Finn Russell very similarly to Johnny Sexton, who always wants the ball in his hand. He made that comment. And here's something around Finn Russell, and it's great to see him in the form that he's in. And even with Scotland, Bernard, I'm like, right, if Scotland are going to win something or do something, it will not be because of Finn Russell, it will be because someone else, because it's always about Finn Russell, right? So we needed other players like Sione Tuipulotu or Hugh Jones to step up, which they did. But I think if the Lions are going to win this series, yes, it's going to be about a number of different things. I think Finn Russell will be the MVP. I think he'll be the man, the man of the moment for them. I think he is that important to how this all threads in together. The kicking game, you know, we know Finn's at his best when the crossfield kicks are going in, but the way that Australia defend, where they're not as hard up on the outside, the aerial ability that they've got as well, and the fact that they are going to get stuck into Finn Russell. I think if the Lions win this series and win it well, Finn Russell will be one of the main drivers and the reasons behind that. And I think he's going to deliver. I think he's going to step up.
Yeah, I agree too. But and also, to be fair, I said that won't be wide. But I think the shapes that the Lions will play off 10 gives him so many viable options. And like his passing game is phenomenal. And his ability also to see a dog leg and go and get into that gap or get through that gap or get his hands free. Like it should be the perfect system for him because, as I said, I think he'll be on the front foot, which he isn't always with Scotland. But also I think that the attacking shape gives him the opportunity to be creative being direct, if that makes sense, rather than creative to go wide, you know. So I think that the balance will be there. And I think that's something that really frustrated Farrell, was that they weren't playing with any balance. It was very, very much play behind or play away from the defence. Whereas I think now over the last 2 weeks, you've seen a better diversity to how they want to play.
I would say that the Lions have looked most vulnerable. It's through no fault of their own, because of Hugo Keenan's sickness and Blair Kinghorn's injury, and then putting Marcus in there in such an integral position against an Australian kicking team. They've looked weak at 15 through no fault of their own. Would you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. It is the area of concern, but I think there's justification. Like Kinghorn, unfortunately, obviously got that knock. So, and I think he will be back. Hopefully be back for next week, because I think he could add something, you know, different. Obviously he's got a huge amount of gas and such an exciting attacking player, and particularly if we can see the Lions, you know, being able to dent, even having him as an extra attacking option in the back three, with a different skill set to Hugo, I think would be, you know, a really nice option for Farrell. I think we have to forgive Hugo's performance because of how sick he was. I mean, apparently it was horrific, and he just, obviously his first game back, he was just a little bit off, but that's natural. He lost 6 kilos, but I think under the high ball, he can be trusted, and I think actually he's probably perfect. And I think he'll be back. I think he'll be right now. He'll be right with that extra week prep with no travel, and he'll go in there and do a job. But obviously, going into this game, if you're looking at, you know, what we've seen so far, it's no one has really nailed it down. But I think there's genuine excuses why, and I think if Kinghorn or Keenan end up playing the next three tests, we'll be 100%. We'll be fine.
See, for me, Hugo Keenan and Tommy Freeman, I think, will have clear directives in the game.
Yeah.
Catch the high ball. I know that's a very simple thing to say, right? But we know what Tommy Freeman can do. We've seen him for England. He's been one of the standout players in the Northern Hemisphere. But the Lions have looked shaky under the high ball, and I think you go into. I think Hugo Keenan, if he has a good game and under the high ball, I think he starts potentially in all 3 tests, which is a big shout considering Blair Kinghorn's so good. But Tommy Freeman as well on the right wing. Do you think Mac would have started if he was fit?
I don't think Mac would have started. I think Mac's had a really good impact on this tour, as we would expect. I think, to be honest, for Farrell, you have to take into account that the Irish players know the system better. And I saw an interview with Jack Cohen, and he was saying it's quite easy for them because even the training sessions, they know exactly what Farrell wants out of this drill. You know what I mean? So, but then I also think for Farrell has to go, well, okay, so Mac is naturally going to look more suited to this system because he knows it better. And then be able to go, well, Tommy has more power, more pace. And now it's like my job as a coach is by test week 1 to have everybody up to speed. So I think Freeman has just a little bit more out and out finishing power and pace than Mac. But yeah, Mac could play in this test series. Mac's been really good, but I think Freeman would have started regardless of that injury, to be honest.
You know, from the inside, but I know you're very close to it. What have the lads been saying? What have the coaching staff been saying? Has it been tough to get to this point with all the games, with all the travel? Because it's a modern game. It's not like even 4-8 years ago where the game was a lot more old school. Like the amount of games and the travel, and we're seeing that with the injuries, and we're seeing it looks like it's been tough on them.
It's been tough because I think the temptation, Jim, is on a tour like this where you have not many training days, where you have a lot of travel, where you're doing a lot of rotation, is literally to play 10-man rugby or 12-man rugby and squeeze the life out of teams, which the Lions probably, particularly in those provincial games, they easily could have. Like, I mean, they could have just like scrummed them, mauled them to death, just used the power, play off 9. And they actually resisted that temptation because that's not really how Farrell wants to play. And now, obviously, I said, I think he was frustrated with how much they wanted to play, you know, the nice part of the Andy Farrell way, which is that wide game. So then they were getting frustrated because effectively everything wasn't perfect and people weren't in the right place, and the lines of running weren't as detailed or as tight as they need to be in that system. So I think they've really enjoyed just having a week in the same place with no midweek game. It's test week, obviously, and because of the quality of opposition that they can have in terms of their own squad, I would say that the Tuesday training session this week was probably harder than any of the games. You know, in terms of like real quality of athleticism, speed in the D, all that stuff, decision making. So anything they got positive this week at training, they would have had to earn. Whereas, to be honest, you know, some of those games, it gives you a false sense of how good you are because of how poor some of the opposition were, particularly in the last quarter. So it has been tough, but that's the fairness. The mindset thing is interesting, lads. Is that I don't know if you've noticed it, talking about making history, and like, what is history? Because the Lions have won a series in Australia before, but I think history is to be unbeaten. You know, to be unbeaten on tour is something that I think they have kind of set as their team, as their motivation. And I think Farrell's trying to get everybody, you know, the 38 who originally picked, the additions, to believe in the opportunity they have to create history as a group. And I don't think there'll be any people going off tour or any of that stuff, you know, regardless of how the next 3 selections go. I think that as a group, they're very united in terms of the opportunity they have to create history for them, which is to basically be the first team unbeaten in Australia.
Could you imagine that session on Tuesday, though? Because it's all friends, isn't it? 4 nations or 3 nations and Jack Morgan all together, and it's all lovely and they're all having a great crack. But that would have been the one, wouldn't it, where everyone's comfortable with each other, and some of the lads would have been fucking raging. Like your Josh van der Fleers and your Henry Pollocks would have been going hard.
Yeah, well, Jim, you've been there. The worst training session is when the team is picked and the fellas know they're not in, and you have no referee, or the referee doesn't have any power. He's no yellow card, red card. There's no siding officer. Fuck.
But that's what they need. That's what you need, right?
I don't miss those days, but you do need them. You do need them to get you right. You know what I mean? And you know, sports psychology and all that stuff is all really important. But there's nothing like actually, you know, having to overcome a problem on a Tuesday, where that's small, where that's in phase D or whatever, and just fix it, and have trust in the people that you're going to be going to war with on Saturday. That you're going to find there's going to be enough leadership there, there's going to be enough brains there, there's going to be enough heart there, enough power there, unfortunately, because you need that to get it done.
So overall feelings then, lads, what are we thinking? Are we happy with the team? Happy with the makeup of the bench? Are you confident going into Saturday?
I'm happy-ish. I think he could have been a bit more ballsy with the bench. I think he could have gone with Owen Farrell. But I think there'd be a number of reasons why. I think Owen comes in for test 2. I think he has to, regardless of what happens. I think Henry Pollock has done enough to show that he can bring something off the bench. But apart from that, like, I'm happy. I maybe would have gone Chesham to start at 6, but I would have had Ty Burn on the bench. Apart from that, I think it kind of picked itself, really.
Yeah, I'd be the same. I thought Pollock was a certainty, and I think if the game is tight with 20 minutes to go, you would have loved to have both those guys, Owen and Pollock, to come in. But having said that, I think Earl has been outstanding. I think he was pushing Conan harder than we maybe thought pre-tour. He's shown that he can. He's a proper 8 as well. So he deserves it. Chesham definitely deserves it. And maybe will give you more impact than Tig off the bench. I think Tig is someone, he's had a lot of game time this year at Munster. He's maybe not as dynamic as he was, but certainly with him and Itoje, you've got 2 unbelievable jacklers, who don't have the profile. Normally you're looking for your 7s or your hookers to do that. But Marrow and Tig are hard on the ball. And obviously big game players. I think potentially if Gary Ringrose was fit, it would have been Aki and Ringrose. I think that's the way it was looking. But I absolutely love the opportunity for Tupolatu and Hugh Jones. I think Hugh Jones has been really. So
you think if Ringrose was fit, he would have gone for the 2 Irish boys in the centre as a partnership?
Yeah, I do. I think that's what he was building towards. Yeah, that once Ringrose got injured, that made it. I don't know why. I don't think it's attractive to play Aki and Hugh Jones together. Not saying that they couldn't work, but just you know exactly what you're getting now with Russell, Tupolatu and Hugh Jones. I think you would have went for Ringrose mainly for defensive point of view, for this first test, and maybe then rotated a little bit. But no, I like it. I think it's great that Keenan's back. Obviously, with Kinghorn being injured, that was an easy decision once Hugo got back from fitness. And I like Freeman. And I think Lowe has a huge role to play. So much of the Lions' kicking game will revolve around him, and he's a menace on the wing as well. And I think he'll look forward to impose himself physically. And we talk about Genge and we talk about maybe Tupolata running over someone. It's nice to see James Lowe going down the 5 meter channel. Fending people off, staying in the field, getting you over the gain line as well. And he's a narky. There'll be lots of verbals from him as well. He's someone that the opposition will want to get into, but he won't take a backward step. So I like the team, but I do agree it's probably safer than I thought it could be. But I couldn't question anyone's right to be in it.
Yeah, I'll finish with this. When I look at the Lions team, I see size, I see power, I see units. You look at Genji, you look at Dan Sheehan, he's massive. Ty Furlong, Joe McCarthy, Maro Itoje. I'm naming every player, right? But I'm naming the players which they're massive. They're huge men. And when you think of Lions tours gone by, the greats of '97, they were big men. They were, and that was the identity of what it was to be a British and Irish Lion. The physicality that comes with it, like the Route 1. The scrum, the maul, the Northern Hemisphere identity up against an Australian team who are better around the contact area. They're definitely better under Joe Smith, but it has that lightweight feel to them. And I've just got a feeling now. I didn't think I would feel like this. I thought I would feel more like Australia would have more parity around the physicality, but maybe with the likes of Will Skelton, Valentini, no Tupou, that I'm just looking at it now and maybe I've got the red blinkers on.
No, I think you're right, Jim. I think Australia being quite patchy against Fiji was a bit of a surprise to me. I thought November set them up nicely and maybe just needed that run out, but it'll be the greatest. Joe Schmidt's had a lot of success, but if they can win this first test, you'd have to say it's the greatest achievement of his career, because that team on paper doesn't blow you away. That Australian team doesn't blow you away. You mentioned
it's not a South Africa. You look right. If you look at South Africa, I know it was during COVID. Look at the players that they had. I'm not going to list them, right? You look at the All Blacks in 2017, like we were talking about players both in 2017 and 2021 that were at the peak, the prime of their game. Like they were world-renowned stars, highest paid players in the world, like the best players in the world. And then you look at the Australia team, and I agree with you. If Joe Smith pulls this off and these Wallabies team pulls this off, it will be a masterstroke. I don't know how they do it, but yeah, it's and that's what it is, isn't it? That's what we want. We're here. It's been a hell of a build-up.
Looking forward to it.
Right, Jim, let's let Bernard get off now and back to his holiday in Portugal. So thanks for coming on, mate.
Cheers, boys. Talk to you soon.
Awesome, Bernard. Enjoy, mate. I'll text you over the weekend.
Yeah.
Right, mate, let's finish with some tour talk, Jim. Hit me with it. What are you most excited to see? Get us fired up for the game.
Oh, I'm not going to give you one of these mad promos again because they sound too cheesy. But here we go. I'm most looking forward to seeing the battle between Sione Tuipulotu and Joseph Suaalii. There's history there. There's some old news that needs ironing out, but also the aerial ability, not of Sione Tuipulotu and Joseph Suaalii, that particular battle, but Joseph Suaalii versus the rest. And we've seen what he can do in the skies. We saw that during the Autumn Nations series. We know that Australia are going to kick the ball, and I think that battle is going to be fascinating. And then also the physical battle of the gain line, the way that Australia play now. Yes, they haven't got the physical specimens of the likes of South Africa and the All Blacks, but my word, can they battle at the breakdown? Do they bang in the tackle? So for me, the aerial contest with Joseph Suaalii versus the rest, but then also that physical battle at the breakdown and the fight for the gain line. Well, Rob, it's here. Test week finally is upon us, and I'm pumped. I'm sure you are too. And make sure that you watch every match live on Sky Sports, which is available to stream on now. 18 plus, UK only, minimum speed 2.5 megabits per second. Live scheduling may be subject to change and full terms apply.
Well, we've got some live events in the build to the final test as well. One with Biggs on a Wednesday, Neat, which is actually sold out now, so you can't get tickets for that one.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, but we have got another date with Alan Wynne-Jones on a Thursday afternoon in Three Wise Monkeys ahead of the Legends game. Were you invited to play in that?
I was invited to play and I politely declined. So good luck to all the lads that are playing. So is this live show the Thursday before the game?
Yes.
Calm before the storm.
Calm before the storm. But you can get your tickets now at ticketpass.org if you just head there and search for the Rugby Pod. Well, before we go, mate, prediction for Saturday?
Prediction for Saturday. I don't want it to be comfortable, but there is a feeling inside of me that it could be, depending on the weather. What's the weather like? You're there at the minute.
It's hot, mate.
It's hot.
It's like 20 odd degrees, sun's out.
Yeah. I think for me, the conditions obviously will play a big part if it's a wet ball or a dry ball, but I'm looking at the two teams side by side now, and I can't see anything less than a comfortable victory for the Lions. I don't like doing score predictions, but all right then, you've pushed me. 27-12 to the Lions.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
But who knows? I hope Australia turn up. I'm sure they will. They're a proud country. They're a proud rugby nation. They've got some great people involved, and they've managed to turn this ship around to make what's going to be an incredible Lions series. So, yeah, good luck and congratulations to everyone involved, and I can't wait.
Cheers, Jim.
Thanks, Rob. Big thank you to all the listeners. You know the drill. Subscribe to all the channels. Interact with us. It is upon us, and we're looking forward to watching it.
Please be kind in the comments.
No, they don't need to be kind. Just be honest. It's not always kind. Just be honest, but be clean. Rugby Pod.